Aarav has designed a device that can be attached to walking sticks. So it provides safety and peace of mind to the elderlies and their families. You said that one of the things that you were concerned about is the care for senior citizens. So what happened exactly?
I've always had very strange reasons for switching schools. Switching from Jess to GEMS Wellington was because I would get to have a new laptop. So the one I had before was very old. It was very tacky.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Be Your Own Boss podcast. As you know, on this show, we bring in stories of innovation, inspiration, and entrepreneurship. And today, we have an extraordinary guest with us, a young innovator who's making waves in social entrepreneurship, Aarav Trivedi. Aarav has designed a device that can be attached to walking sticks. So it provides safety and peace of mind to the elderlies and their families. And this device can not just detect falls, it can also send out SOS alerts. So in a way, I see that this connects generations. It bridges the gaps between generations across borders. And that's not it. Aarav is also passionate about sustainability. And he has developed an app that encourages individuals towards environmental friendly behavior. So this innovator, this young social entrepreneur is teaching us how technology can be used to make meaningful change. Aarav, welcome to the Be Your Own Boss podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here from my side. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Cool. Aarav, so like we do always on the Be Your Own Boss podcast, we start the story right from the beginning, like all the way from the beginning. So tell us about your parents, your siblings, where were you born? Tell us about your childhood memories.
Sure. So right now I'm 17 years old, so pretty small, I would say. I have enjoyed my life. I was born in Kanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India. I come from a family of four. So me, my father, Aarav Trivedi, my mom, Arpita Trivedi, and my elder sister, Ishita Trivedi. So yes, I am the youngest in the family. We did move out about 6 months after I was born into UAE. So I've pretty much lived my entire life in this country. And I just can't stop loving it with each new day. You think you might get bored with living in the same place, but it has been a fantastic 17 years. My entire family, most of them, my dad, my mom, and a lot of my other relatives, they're all IIT graduates. Most of them in the field of engineering. So I guess there's this notion that, or this expectation that in the future the child would follow in the same domain, or I would go, or my sister would go into the field of engineering as well. And that was what I had in mind for a huge part of my life. I would say up until 2 years ago, engineering was all that I had in my mind. But I guess we'll delve into the idea of how entrepreneurship and the idea of that came to the table a bit later. And my sister, she is pursuing business analytics and finance at US in the US.
So being the youngest in the family, were you a naughty child?
From what I can remember, I was a very naughty child. I used to love just destroying everything that we had in our house. I still do.
Okay.
So I used to take my mom's, all the things from her cosmetics bag and just throw it out of the window, squeeze everything out. Take my dad's laptop. I'd love to remove the keys because they were very clicky in my opinion. So I just used to I feel like I was pretty savage. I used to chew on the keys and then just throw them away. So I would say I was a pretty spoiled child.
Destructive.
I was very destructive. But for some reason, my parents have always thought that I was the more peaceful one. So surely my sister must have been some kind of a task. But no, I think I had a brilliant childhood. Obviously brought up by two beautiful parents. they've done no wrong when it comes to bringing me and my sister up. I would say I've had a pretty normal childhood, so not something that you would expect out of the ordinary. But yes, I did love observing a lot about the world and how it functions and the problems and the way people interact.
You go to GEMS Wellington, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So is that the school that you've always been in, or?
We have changed quite a few schools. Again, I have changed, I think, lesser schools. I've been to about 4 schools throughout the course of my life. This is my final year.
In Dubai, within Dubai?
In Dubai, within Dubai.
Okay.
My sister has been to more, I think, to about 6 schools.
Wow.
And always this is another interesting thing for all the people listening in, but I've always had very strange reasons for switching schools. So once my sister was switching school from, we went to Springdale's, and we were switching to a school called Jess. So she was switching because she wanted to opt for a new curriculum that would offer more diversity in terms of subjects. But the reason why I switched when I got an offer was because I hadn't completed my holiday homework, and I had a teacher who really would be very strict and very thorough with the amount of work that we did. That was one of the reasons. Then switching from Jess to GEMS Wellington was because I would get to have a new laptop. So the one I had before was very old. It was very tacky. So I just used to find it very hard to work with that. So obviously a lucrative opportunity like a new laptop was an amazing thing for me.
Wow.
And so I've always had the weirdest reasons.
Amazing, amazing. So how did let's say, the destructive child become constructive social entrepreneur? How did that social entrepreneurship come about?
So as I said, I was pretty observant as a child. I wouldn't say I like to look at all the negative things in our world, but I do have an eye for all the issues that are very prevalent in society. So I was always subconsciously thinking about things like these, even during childhood, even if that didn't mean at that age I was taking any action. But I always did have these at the back of my mind about all the different issues that we had. So, be it things like elder age, isolation, that was something that was in my mind because I had heard of a lot of different incidents, or things like labor rights. Or like animal welfare rights. So these were things that I'd heard about. And at such an impressionable age, I think it just really sticks with you, things that are very emotionally, that carry a lot of weight. So I would say that's how it started. That's how this entire journey of going from someone who is really destructive to someone who wants to bridge the gap was just identifying all the gaps that exist in society and seeing how making a change. Using my passions and whatever best I can do.
Talking of passions, right? Like what kind of subjects are you more interested into?
I would say computer science is the main one. Very cliche. Very cliche. Indian kid, likes computer science. But I do have other subjects that I do like, that I do enjoy. One of them is economics, and also physics. It is a weird combo, but there's just certain aspects of each that afford me to enjoy that experience. So
Yeah, I can see the connection. I can see the dots. Like, physics, because, like, let's say, if you want to make things better, right? You need to have a design thinking, and engineering. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a IIT product, so then that kind of comes. That's in your blood. And then the economics part, right? And that's where you see you have to understand economics to be a social entrepreneur,
right.
and that's what has come about. So tell us about, like, this the elderly. You said that you one of the things that you were concerned about is the care for senior citizens. So what happened exactly? Is there some experience?
Sure. So let's start right from the very beginning. My aunt is associated. I won't, for the sake of this podcast, I won't take the name of the elder care home, but she was associated with this organization, and so me and my mother and my sister, we visit Delhi during every summer vacation. So I used to just waste a lot of time. So I used to think, what better way to than just spend some quality time, and if that can make a difference in someone's life. So I started out as a volunteer at that elder age care home. So my job entailed looking after new senior citizens who came into that orphanage, helping them settle in, helping them make new friendships, and just letting them get their way around the house. So that was my job at that time. So I did this for about 2 summers, 2 consecutive summers, I think, in 2021 and 2022.
Okay.
So after, in those 2 years, what I realized was that these facilities are very well maintained and they do serve the purpose of caring for the elderly.
But infrastructure wise.
Yeah, infrastructure wise. But there was an underlying gap in terms of emotional isolation and vulnerability, which was an indirect feeling that I got during my experience in those 2 years, which was something that I thought people working at these orphanages or at these care
Old
homes
age homes, yeah.
were either too attuned to or just thought were too trivial to address. Um, and then I did do some research as well after that because I was pretty shocked by some of the instances. Again, I'll delve into this later. But after some research, I think there was this study that said that 71% of, in just India, 71% of elderly citizens have frequently reported or have described feeling isolation or a sense of vulnerability, or even in some cases being abused or feeling threatened. But only 1 out of 6 of these cases are ever legally reported. So that was a huge moment for me. That was something that really shook me because, again, at such a young age, it is a very impressionable experience. It's something that really shocks you. Um, and so that's how the idea behind Sanjeevani, so that's the name of the project, that was the brainchild behind, that entire process was the brainchild behind Sanjeevani. And then obviously we go on to the
And
project.
like, if I may ask, I mean, you can choose not to answer this. Like, how was your relationship with your grandparents on both sides?
I'm fortunate enough to say that it's been amazing. So my grandmom, unfortunately, she passed away before I was born. I am told that she was, again, an amazing character. So I would have loved to converse with her at some point. But all three other grandparents of mine, so my mother's dad and then both of my father's parents, I've always had a very strong bond with them. I think the elderly just offer something that other members of society can't. It's a very, I wouldn't say an ancient perspective, but a unique perspective that you just don't get to have, especially as a kid over here who lived in a family of 4 with just my parents. You don't get that perspective on life that they get to offer.
Yeah.
So,
They've seen life, they have the experience.
exactly.
So, when you were at this old age home here and, taking care of this ones, were there any particular, like, senior citizens that you came across where either they are like abandoned there, or they've come on their own because they have seen that, okay, my kids have left and there is nothing else, I better stay in the company of my senior. What kind of people were there in that?
So this is a very interesting question. I was actually thinking about this just a few days ago, but um, okay, let me tell you 2 different instances. So there was a 68-year-old lady. She was, this is sad to say, but she was kicked out of her house and she was forced to come to the elder age care home. But my experience with her was that she was always very anxious about something, right? So I did spend a few weeks to try to get closer to her because I didn't want to confront her about these feelings very immediately. So over the course of those few weeks, after those few weeks, when I confronted her about what I saw in front of my eyes, she confessed how she was hiding her blood pressure medications under the mattress because one of the caregivers, they had left, obviously, but one of their past caregivers, she noticed had anger management issues. And so they often hid her medications, even though.
So the caregiver had anger management issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they hid her medications, even though she hadn't done anything to them, anything wrong, as a way to, I guess, punish her, just vent those feelings out. It was very cruel. Honestly, I've no words to express it. Even when I think about it, it's just so shocking. And that's the thing with her as well, right? That caregiver had left quite a while ago, but that trauma stuck with her, and that is something that is very normal for any human who has gone through such an experience to feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I was just really shocked to converse with such a person. Up until that point in my life, I didn't know that things like this would happen. But again, I guess it was all for the better because it did lead to something beautiful. And then the second case I had was a man, I think he was a retired English professor, and he hadn't spoken to his family for the past 3 years. So, from what I got to know about him during my time there, was that he was someone who really loved his family, who really looked after the care and the nurture and the education for his children, to the extent that I think he told me that he sold some of his ancestral property to just afford the best education for his children. Obviously, there was that unspeakable love,
It's
the
like
great
I
amounts of
did so
love.
much for them, and then now I'm
Exactly.
like,
And then what happened was a few years ago, his son had just, without informing him, he just left with his family. Um, and he hadn't spoken to him for 3 years. So I remember every Sunday he used to wait for a phone call from his son.
son, yeah.
But he never got those calls. There was this lobby where they used to wait for calls. So Sunday, obviously, people who were on good terms with their children, they used to call their children very frequently. But for people whose family members either didn't have time, Sunday was the time when their families would call in this lobby room. Again, these people were very cute in the sense that they didn't have their own mobile phones, or they didn't really care a lot about technology, so that was the room where they could make those calls. And I remember watching him sitting for every Sunday I can remember, for that entire window that he had, waiting for a call, but he never got that call. And I remember, and this is the very sad part, which was how he blamed himself for maybe doing something that he doesn't remember, doing something wrong to them, which is what inflicted this thing to happen in the first place. So
That's sad.
it was very sad.
Yeah. So these experiences that you had at the old age home kind of shaped your thinking in a way that you wanted to do something, right? Like we were talking about, making a change. You see something wrong, you want to make a change, and you have the engineering mind to make that. So tell us about that. Like, how did that transition into the device and the project Sanjeevani? Let's talk about Sanjeevani.
Right. So I did do a lot of research into people who have done or have expertise in the field of elder age abuse and prevention, but unfortunately, at that point, there was only research that led to the amount of cases that were being reported, or the amount of experiences that people had dealt with. But there was no actual solution to this problem. There were things that measured, obviously, things like health metrics, things like fall detection, which is a part of Sanjeevani. But the actual abuse and isolation, that aspect was not covered yet. And so, in essence, that is a target area that I felt I needed to focus on with this project that I was embarking on. And so I thought to myself, what's the best way to get to a solution? What's the best excuse to build, or what skill sets can I bring to the table to build a solution? So that involved my fascination for technology and making a social impact. So the idea for the social impact was already there. I wanted to do something. I knew that I wouldn't turn around and say, it's fine, let's just move on from the idea. And then technology. So I did do a lot of research, and I came to this idea. Again, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel, because there were a lot of solutions, as I said, that things like rings, or things like the wearable sensors that just measure things like health metrics or fall detection. I wanted to actually create a space where they could feel safe, or a space where they can have a voice to ever send any distress signals. So that's how I came to the idea of Sanjeevani. So I'll just explain it in a brief. I think you mentioned how it's a stick. It's attachable on a stick, but the idea behind this is that it's actually a unit that you can attach to any piece of, any object that a person would use in their day. So it's got these ledges that you can put Velcro straps through. So not just sticks, honestly. It's very lightweight as well, which is about 120 grams. So you can attach it to bed frames, to wheelchairs, basically anything that a person would use in their daily life that they think is the object that they use the most. Because again, I did learn that these people weren't very apt with technology, and they just found it a major inconvenience. So going down that rabbit hole would be very futile.
I mean, you don't want to try and like teach them how to use the phone or the
Exactly.
app or anything. You just
Exactly.
want to keep
I
it.
wanted to build a system which is very intuitive and something that didn't disrupt their daily routine. So that's how I came to the to this. So yeah, I guess it's an object attachable IoT system. IoT is Internet of Things, which basically houses a few different components. And the way it works is, again, there's two-pronged. The first part is the actual unit itself, which allows you to do about three different things. So obviously it measures your health metrics. It measures so things like your heart rate, your blood pressure, ECG.
Okay.
So it can do that. It obviously detects fall detection. So the system we've created is we tested a few different X, Y, and Z axis thresholds, and if the value or the reading at a current instant or like at an instant goes beyond those thresholds, there'll be about 10 seconds of beeping, so 5 consecutive beeps. And if the person does not respond with just clicking with the button off to turn the beeps off, then the device assumes that there's been some sort of an incident and the person either is unconscious or just can't reply. So then it sends an emergency distress signal to emergency services or hotlines in vicinity to the person. So each elder care home has these phone numbers that they keep of any emergency services or hospitals, things like that, that are in vicinity. So what we do is we program that number. We program a primary number and a backup number.
So the device calls that number.
Right. So I wouldn't say it initiates a phone call per se, but it does send a distress signal. We do inform these emergency services beforehand that if there's a distress signal, it's not an unidentified number. It's a warning that you must pay attention to this. And so that's how that aspect of the system works. And then the main aspect of this project is obviously if they ever feel like they're under threat or if they're under any sort of abuse that they're experiencing, and if they would like to inform someone, then they have an option to press the button and it automatically sends a distress signal. I do get the fact that it is in its initial phase, and there may be a few caveats with the project about how some people probably don't keep their walking stick with them throughout the day, or if there's people who have limited limb abilities, right? So in that sense,
Also, they might just press it by mistake.
exactly. So there are these false positives that you need to factor in, but that is the reason why we've tried to make this as flexible as possible. It's not just a stick that we're providing this unit for. As I said, any and every object that it can attach to or that they think that they use the most. The reason why we advertise it to use on a stick is because based on a lot of research, a walking stick or a cane is the object that most elderly citizens use, or a major proportion of them. Obviously, not all of them have those, but they do use that for the most part of the day.
But I'm curious about the health metrics. You said that it detects like your heart rate and the blood pressure. If it's not attached to the body, how does it detect that?
So essentially, there is a biosensor hub, which so through physical contact with the what do you call it, the stick, and I guess the casing that we've made, that we've 3D printed, allows for these signals to pass through. So that's the beauty of these biosensor hubs, is that they can detect physical contact from far away. So even if you're holding the stick from here and if the unit is attached there, it detects the physical presence, and it is able to take all these readings and compare them to pre-stored values. So I guess it's a blessing in disguise, because that was one part of the solution that was already there, ready for me to use, and that's the beauty of that's the beauty of technology.
Yeah, it's amazing how you've used technology and innovative ideas to kind of help the people. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times about fall, right? Like, I mean, this is mainly like it detects falls. Why have you focused, mainly on fall accidents? When it comes to senior citizens, there are lots of other issues that happens, right, with them.
This again was one of the most prevalent issues that I came across in the first phase of the project. Obviously, there are other things that we are working on for future phases, but in my experience, even with my grandparents, honestly, in their day-to-day life, the concept of falling was very common. Um, and also not the fact that it was just my grandparents. It is a proven fact that it is a very common issue throughout the.
And happens a lot, especially in the bathroom, right? The falling in the bathroom has been like a very common thing. So, is there any way that the device can help in that situation? Because they may not have their walking stick with them in the bathroom,
Right.
or I don't know. How does it like? Have you thought of that?
We did think of that because I guess that is one of the places where such an issue would occur most frequently. Um, there are things like bathroom caddies or things that you could attach it to, but again, there's no certainty that if they fall, those items fall as well. Yes, with the initial stage of this project, there are still many questions that we need to address.
Maybe you can keep working and keep
Exactly.
innovating.
We can keep. We do intend to keep working, infinitely on this project because there's always scope to improve. Um, we did have one idea about attaching a smaller unit to the person on their arm, I guess.
Yeah.
A non-invasive method, obviously.
Non-invasive.
Right. So we would just like to have it externally on the person. In the unfortunate event that they fall, uh, in a bathroom, I guess the certainty of feeling abused or threatened would be very less. So we can house a much smaller system that just detects fall detection. So essentially, you can just place it around your arm when you're taking a shower. So that is something that we've thought of, and it is something that we would like to introduce. But so far, that's what we've researched.
So there is an app that is integrated with the device, right? Tell us about that app.
The app could be split into two things. The first part is that it connects with the stick and all of the activity that takes place on the stick. So for families that are abroad, there's often this very huge situation that they have, or this huge problem that they have, where they can't monitor the activity or the unfortunate circumstances that people at this age might find themselves in. So yeah, any distress signals that are sent to or basically any activity that takes place throughout the day is recorded and sent as a system log every hour to parents and to caregivers. That is one aspect of the app. The other aspect that I haven't touched upon that I would like to talk about now is I talked about how they experience a lot of isolation and this like lack of voice that they have because they have, they may have friends, but they have no one to share their experiences with. And I did mention the instances of people whose family just won't talk to them. So again, they have a lack of purpose in their life. They find it very hard to wake up from their bed every day with a purpose, a motive. So what this app does is that it aims to connect the elderly with the youth, and basically bridges this intergenerational gap in the sense that it allows the elderly to share their experiences, their wisdom, their stories based on a theme of the week, maybe. So, what we're trying to do here is while we're trying to solve the idea of isolation, we're also trying to give these people a voice and a sense of purpose. And so that's the entire idea of the app. I do hope it helps solve the issue, and I hope it gives the youth and the elderly a good chance to connect.
Through the app, you're saying the senior citizens can share their stories. So how does that work? Like, do they record a video, or how does it work exactly that they reach out to the youth?
Right. So again, another thing we factored into this process is that people are different kinds of learners and different kinds of and there's different kinds of ways in which they express their thoughts and their feelings. So there are people who would like to do it visually, very orally, or there are people who like to do it through the medium of text. So we do provide that option for the elderly. So if they are someone who likes to share by writing, there is an option to share through text. Again, I talked about a theme of the week, so I guess that kind of spices up things in the sense that there is a new idea to look forward to each week. And so according to that, people can think of any encounters, any interactions to share. And then there's also, as you said, an option to record a video and share it equally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that theme is a great idea, because then they look at the theme, they'll have a lot of memories attached to it, and they have a lot of experience and memories, right, that they can share.
I agree. This is a problem that I face. People say that an open canvas is very beautiful in the sense that you can think of anything, but sometimes when you give people that much freedom, there's ironically very less thought, or there's very less ideas that come to mind. And so I guess my idea with the theme was it just gives them something very specific to think about, and every week it changes, so they have something new to share.
Starting point, right? They just take that as a starting point and think, then it goes beyond. Tell us about the sustainability app. So
The idea of the environment, the idea of sustainability, or just like even issues that are there related to this field, was something that we talked about throughout my childhood. It's not something that has just come up. There's no free lunch in this world. So I guess I just tried to create this reward system where we appreciate you, we reward you, or we incentivize you for your contributions.